Ooh. The title scared me. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. Lana Condor is back on Netflix, and I love her. I was excited to see what she could do with Boo Bitch, but is it good? Well, let's talk about it. Over the course of one night, a high school senior who's lived her life safely under the radar seizes the opportunity to change her narrative and start living an epic life, only to find out the next morning she's a ghost. This series is rated TV-14 for substances and obviously some language, and you have these two senior BFFs that make this effort to be seen in their last year of high school. Lana Condor is our main character. Zoe Colletti plays Gia, that BFF, and I was excited to see what sort of show we have at hand here. You have some of the creators on hand from On My Block, and you guys know On My Block, one of my favorite shows on Netflix, that really over-the-top kind of humor that knows exactly what it is, somewhat satirical style. I was hoping that could maybe translate into this series, and then the idea of a ghost at play. So not only can you capture that coming-of-age spirit that occasionally works really well in these series on Netflix, but you can also go a little bit into the afterlife, a sci-fi twist or spin on a show like this, if you will. Now, is the show over the top because of the ghost element? Absolutely not. It's over the top for different reasons that we'll get into, but that element did bring a couple of things to this experience that I was like, oh, okay, well, that's different. That's interesting. There's something that begins to happen in the final batch of episodes that tries to take everything in a different direction. That's much appreciated, even though I did kind of see that coming as we got closer and closer to that moment. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to, can you capture the humor? Can you capture the spirit of this premise, which was interesting? I want to start with the good things first. And the good things all come down to Lana Condor's performance, who is trying her best to work around some of these questionable moments within the dialogue and being extremely compelling on screen. Love her, and to all the boys, but she's playing a vastly different character this time around. Zoe Colletti is rock solid as Gia. There were some stories there that I wish they would have explored more to flesh out those emotions, but when it comes to delivering on that emotion, she's fantastic, so not a bad thing to say about the two leads. And then you have Aparna Brielle, who plays Riley. It's very evident what type of character Riley is at the beginning, but she plays it well. And finally, I'd say that the next biggest character is Mason Versaw, who plays Jake C., who has a very interesting story there that I wish they could have explored just a bit more, because he feels as if he's being controlled whenever he's in a relationship, and it's almost as if he's trapped and can't get out of this bubble that he's in, even though he's trying his best to break free when he makes a decision at the beginning of the show. But as that decision plays out, you're like, oh, he's just in the same spot that he was in. They never really explore that, but I found that to be interesting. The last big positive I can say here is the show is short, right? 30-minute episodes, not very many episodes, only 8, so it was an easier binge, an easier watch, and I got through it because that pace, that rampant pace that never slows down is present. My big issue with this series is the fact that it just doesn't really know how to execute on the humor. They go for the jokes that are less jokes and more so just conversations between characters, and they're trying to get the laugh out of those conversations, and the moments that friends have with each other, or Erica going up against Riley, those conversations that are ridiculously over the top, like an On My Block, but not as aware of the type of humor that they're trying to go for. So instead of laughing, there were so many points in the series that just made me really uncomfortable because they're going for that joke, and it just isn't landing. It's also as if we're watching a satire of a modern-day high school. We're taking all of the cliches and, whether it be speaking in acronyms, which I don't know if people actually, I guess they do. Do they do it? Clearly, this show is for a vastly different target audience than myself, the younger generation. Hello, kids. I'm going to cut that out. No, I'm going to leave it in. But even then, I'm watching these kids talk to each other, and I'm like, it feels like satire, but I don't think that's what they're going for. They're trying to make you laugh, but I'm watching these scenes play out. I'm like, this is so overly ridiculous, but it's not just the kids. It's also the adults in the series. And that's what makes me think there's a massive disconnect there because it just doesn't make sense as it's playing out. I mentioned the acronyms. It's fine if it happens like one time and she's like, BTW, this and that. Okay, that makes sense. But when you're like, BLUTHIO, and yes, they put it on the screen and there's the graphics with that, thank God, or else we wouldn't have known what it meant, but they do it multiple times, and it just felt as if it was there for the sake of being there, for the sake of a giggle, instead of a natural conversation between two teenagers, and you're dealing, and I understand, they're playing it for laughs, clearly, but you're dealing with death here. You're dealing with a ghost, and that concept, even at the beginning when it first happens, there's emotion, there's shock factor, but it doesn't really last because we get right back to the jokes. And characters are so over the top in this series, they completely ignore the fact that we're dealing with something that is heavy and something that is real. And that, for me, was a massive disconnect. It didn't feel natural. Then you look at her parents, Erica Vu's parents, Erica Vu being a character who, she's going through a lot right now, but at the same time, her parents are played off as a consistent joke, and they're not helpful at all. At first, I'm like, they're the cool parents, instead of, being one cliche group of parents, which is nice that they're straying away from that. They just keep doing the same thing, and even when their daughter needs to sit down and have a normal conversation, my God, it never happens because they are the definition of a joke. Her dad's asking her to go and drink with her and smoke and all of these things, and I get it, they're trying to play into the cool parents, but there's a point to where you just have to kind of strip all of those things back. I think of, I don't know why my brain went here, in 8th grade, the A24 film, when she has that wonderful conversation with her dad, and it felt natural, and the rest of the movie is somewhat comedic, but that felt real. There is never anything like this in this show, and it requires it, in my opinion, because we're dealing with death and the afterlife. Sure, if it is pure satire, then maybe it works in its favor, but I don't think this show was trying to be a pure satire. I feel as if it was just trying to be a coming-of-age comedy. And unfortunately, it did not capture that. I didn't laugh all that often. I didn't really feel anything for these characters when I was supposed to. And Erica Vu, her character turns and really the path she's on, she becomes very unlikable. And I get that's what they're going for, but it lasts way longer than I thought it would. I'm like, it's fine if it's 10 minutes, and then she starts to realize things. No, it keeps going. And I'm like, I love Lana Condor. Why are you doing this to me? Before I give you my score, what did you think of Boo Bitch? Leave those thoughts down below, and if you enjoyed this review, let me know by dropping that like. I appreciate it. Boo Bitch is an odd combination of genres and conventions. It never captures the emotions of the situation, but the jokes aren't landing either. Condor and Coletti are good, but the series never comes together. I'm going a 42% with my score. I was excited for this. I hoped it would land for me, but maybe it landed for you all. Clearly, I'm not the target audience, but I would love to know what you guys think down below. Did this series capture the spirit for you? Did it work? And did you like the twists and turns at the end? I'm sure some people will enjoy that. So thank you guys for joining me. Come back for more Netflix reviews. I'll see you soon.